Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll be starting in just a moment. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world, and welcome to the 2021 Goalmakers Conference. We are thrilled that you are here with us today to connect, reflect, and recharge with the global development community. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from Seattle in the Pacific Northwest in the United States, on land that is the traditional homelands of the Coast Salish people, which is made up of 66 tribes and First Nations. We take this opportunity to express our gratitude to the original and current stewards of this land. I know we have people from joining all over the world today, so we invite you to take a moment to learn and acknowledge the Indigenous homelands where you reside. And for all of us to think about the importance of land rights for a person's livelihood, community cohesion, and human dignity. If you're in North or South America or Australia, the link in the Whova chat you can use to find what the Indigenous tribes are in your area. You can also view the other link that'll be in your chat to see a global platform about Indigenous land and land rights. Next, I would like to thank our conference sponsors. We are very grateful for their support today. They include Amazon, Gates Foundation, the Hunger Project, PwC, Emirates, Clark Nuber, Landesa, Linden Logistics, Columbia Bank, and Global Impact. Thank you. So just before we get started with our speakers, I wanted to reflect a little bit about the purpose of this conference. This is actually our 13th annual conference, and we're thrilled to bring the community together, even though it's virtual. The past 19 months will be remembered as a period of massive global disruption and upheaval. Those in the global development community have confronted the pandemic no matter where we live in the world. It's both personal and professional. The pandemic has also demonstrated the interdependence and the connections among issues such as global health, economic prosperity, education, human rights, and so much more. It's now more obvious than ever before that we need to create the networks of partnership for success and create holistic solutions. Global Washington has been using the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework over the past 3 years for our members to enhance their work and find partners and sharpen data-driven approaches to advance the SDGs. We also think that the Sustainable Development Goals can be a roadmap for the future as we reset and get back on track for the goals. That is why we call our annual conference and our community the Goalmakers. Those that are focused on building a more equitable, healthy, and prosperous world for everyone. Goalmakers are driven to make global development more effective, inclusive, and country-led. And that's why we're all here today. Our objective is really to provide a gathering space, even if it's virtual, for the global development practitioners, and so that we can examine what we've learned in the past 19 months. And really determine what we should keep, what we should change, and redefine in our work to improve lives in low and middle income countries. We hope today and tomorrow will be uplifting and inspire you for the future ahead. We hope you come away with new ideas and meaningful connections. Over the next 2 days, you'll hear from top thought leaders in global development, and I hope you will engage and contribute your own perspectives on this virtual platform. I'm really looking forward to the content for this year's conference. We created a poll actually asking all of you what you were most looking forward to. And it came up with this nice word cloud. Very excited that you're all here for the networking. And again, our platform really provides for that. And it's exciting to see all these other words about community and the speakers that you're looking forward to, and especially the next one in the Open Plenary. This poll is going to be open for a while. You can find it in Whova and add your thought and see the word cloud as well. Also, be on the lookout for other polls throughout the conference. You can go to resources in Whova and click on polls. So let's get started. It's now my honor to introduce our first keynote speaker, Schaeffer Okore. Schaeffer is both a goal maker, like we've been talking about, and a goalkeeper. She is part of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Goalkeeper Advisory Board and a director of policy and advocacy for the organization called Women Political Leaders, which is a global network of over 9,000 female political leaders. I'm not going to read her full bio because in Whova, you should be able to click on her bio and see her full background, which is extensive. But I wanted to highlight just a few things. That Schaeffer is a feminist and senior policy advisor to numerous organizations. She's an overall rock star in global development, if you've ever met her. And she's recognized as one of the most influential young Africans and Kenyans in the category of governance and law. We are so honored to have you here with us today, Schaeffer. I'd like to welcome you to the virtual floor for your remarks.
Thank you so much. I think every time I'm introduced, I'm always wondering who is that person you're talking about. But thank you, Kristen. And thank you so very much to Global Washington for having me. As you have been told, my name is Schaeffer Okore, and I work intersectionally on governance, policy, and gender. 4 years ago, in the chilly month of September, I found myself in New York at the second Goalkeepers event, surrounded by luminary individuals from all over the world. When I say found myself, what I mean is that my story to goalkeepers began long before this moment. I had been working tirelessly in pursuit of an alternative narrative of what women's leadership should be, and had been honored to speak about this work at various events across the world. One of these events had happened earlier in that same year, where I got to meet one of my closest friends, Alice McDonald, whom I built a rooted friendship that led me to Goalkeepers. Well, at the Goalkeepers event itself, I got to meet another phenomenal woman, Blessing Omakru, a formidable woman whose work as a gender evangelist tied seamlessly into mine and led to a blooming friendship. I also met Alex Reed, a woman whose ability to lead with her heart, even when the world said otherwise, enriched the way I did my own work. You see, my story is like all other great women's stories. It's fueled and driven by communities of diverse, courageous titans, or what I call my Legion of 10,000, who are women who have built what has now become the person I am today. I am a direct product of a community, and this is exactly why Goalkeepers in itself is an important entity. Goalkeepers' biggest lesson is that we have to go beyond the goals and find the people. We must go beyond the numbers and the statistics of poverty, hunger, gender equity, etc., and find the people who are not represented or seen, because there are human beings behind the work to achieve the global goals. Human beings are the reason we are working towards the goals and why the goals are necessary in the first place. And there are, unfortunately, human beings who also work just as hard and just as long to impede the achievement of these very goals that are a massive step to the dignity of billions of people. Once we start to understand that this is less about institutions, it's less about non-governmental organizations, it's less about governments, it's less about politicians and philanthropies, and much more, if not even more, about people, many other things will become much clearer when we start to speak about the global goals. You see, Goalkeepers is deeply rooted in moving the real stories of people to the forefront and making sure that the people themselves are telling their own stories. People must tell their own stories. I repeat this. Without them, we would not know what it means to live in a world where dignity is lacking, injustice is thriving, inequalities makes its own way and lives amongst the people. This is why ensuring that people who live without dignity tell us what it actually means when the impact and the slow and uncertain steps towards the goals are being taken. You see, the difference between the hungry and the fed, the unhoused and those with comfortable homes, the unemployed and those working and living their passions, those with privilege, those without, those who matter and those who matter not, is a host of difficult and layered circumstances that none of us has much control over. The goals, alongside many other initiatives from the political to the socio-cultural and the economic, are thus a key part in equalizing these massive injustices and inequalities at an international scale. It is these particular injustices and inequalities that limit women's voices in leadership and reduce their inclusion at the international scale, which means that women are still lacking and that the world continues to drag its feet in becoming truly representative. This lack of true and significant representation is what my current work as the Policy and Advocacy Director at Women Political Leaders entails. As someone who has been building communities around women and their leadership in various capacities for over a decade, be it in governance, in politics, in activism, in feminism, menstrual dignity rights, reproductive health rights, and gender policy, I understand the significant role that a community plays in a successful outcome. A community allows for those who've chosen to lead a place of rest, rejuvenation, and restoration. A community challenges what isn't working and reimagines new ways of moving the work forward. A community holds the sacred practice of hope and keeps going even when the tunnel hasn't presented itself for the light to be seen. A community is what lies behind each of us, whose work is anchored in making the world a little less dark, just, or unequal. A community is precisely why the work of Women Political Leaders organization strives in all its activities to demonstrate the significant impact of more women in political leadership in all their diversities. This is to ensure that there is a better, more inclusive and sustainable global future. In order to advance the impact of women, Women Political Leaders organization acknowledges that women need layered support because the barriers against their leadership is equally layered and complex. It is why the work of Women Political Leaders is focused on building communication and visibility of women, connection and networks of women, and communities of solidarity around women. It is clear that the goals are necessary, urgent, and if not anything, crucial. And because of this, we need to work to make them a reality. We can do this by making sure that we work faster, harder, and put more money into all the labor that's advancing progress, starting from the global margins, by actively including minorities and the marginalized. We should also identify and push against everything and anyone that sets up itself against the achievements of the global goals. Another key way that we should and we must remind ourselves is the only way of achieving the global goals is, again, knowing that it is only through the people doing the work, the invisible people, the ones we don't know their names, the ones who constantly live in the world that is growing deeply unjust. It is through energizing the community who are invested in the achievement of the goals as an outcome, and ensuring their stories are core, part and parcel of this process at all levels, that moves us closer to achieving the goals. Each narrative must therefore find its place. Each person must do their part. Each institution or organization or government must commit to action. The power of the collective has always been strong, and while as a world we have long been infatuated with the stories of individual heroes, it is becoming much more evident, particularly now with the ongoing pandemic, that behind every successful revolutionary or progressive person or progressive strategies is the courage and care of a relentless community, eternally committed to and ready to give everything for radical, mutual, beneficial change. In other words, we need to realize that talking alone is not enough. This must be the time for amplified action. We need to stop wondering aloud about the potential of women to lead, which is laughable when we consider that women have led everywhere from households to the community to massive grassroots movements. Women strategize and sacrifice themselves for independence of nations and have pioneered everywhere, from kindergartens to PhD programs, from political parties to parliaments, across all industries and private sectors, all in the ways to see that societies are moving forward. You see, women are already leading. We therefore need to stop putting obstacles in their way. Let us just let women lead. and furthermore, take away the obstacles they face from sexism, racism, classism, and other varied oppressions. Let us just let the women lead. When I started, I mentioned very briefly how my story is the story of many other women, most of whom I didn't mention, but they remind us that the world is and has always been a diverse community. The knowledge about these diversities is growing, and we must see the pushback against this as an enemy of progress. The global goals at their best embody diversity in issues, reminding us that we are all made up of other people's stories. So for the next 2 days of this critical, crucial conference, I hope that we get to connect the dots and realize that we must move and create room for bodies with different abilities, for bodies with different races, geographies, orientations, genders, identities, classes, and religions. We must demand political will, financial commitments and investments with tangible inclusion that allow for the abundance that women create in society to be able to thrive. The next phase of global work or global goals work must dare to move the needle of progress towards transformative leadership, especially the leadership of women. The leadership that we have seen lurking during COVID-19, the leadership that we have seen that the world is in dire need of and that we are all craving for. It must significantly reduce, the work must significantly reduce inequalities and create space where narratives of invisible people behind the goals exist at the forefront. Thank you once again to Global Washington and to Kristen and her fantastical team for having me and to this conference. I wish you all a wholesome, abundant, and thriving engagement. Thank you all, and over to you, Kristen.
Schaeffer, thank you so much. That's such a great way to kick off our conference. So inspiring and also a call to action. So thank you all so much. Fantastic to think about the SDGs. Global Washington, as I said, uses it as a framework, but you're reminding us to never forget the SDGs are actually about people and the connections that we make within that. It's something that we could get lost in, the data. So powerful to say. Thank you so much. And that is really what Global Washington is about. It is about creating these connections, creating these networks that we have for you all today. As Schaeffer said, we should keep these things in mind as we move forward for the next 2 days. I want to encourage everyone to do that, both in the conversations you have throughout the sessions and throughout Whova. You heard at the beginning of this session, there's many different ways that you'll be able to engage throughout the Whova platform. And we have some specific networking sessions where you'll be paired up with another person and you can do one-on-one conversations. There'll be issue-based networking and also networking which we call the virtual happy hour tables. So many opportunities for you all. I'll just remind you too, there are places in Whova where you can do an icebreaker and introduce yourself. And also I'd encourage you in the Whova chat, when you're watching a session, type in your name and affiliation and where you are watching in the world. So we can all, again, create this community virtually. So we have a few minutes before our next session starts. And I want to encourage everyone to go visit our exhibit booths. We have 26 amazing organizations that are doing exhibit booths today. And many of them have videos you can look at. There are a lot of raffles and drawings that you can enter, and you can win prizes from all of those. And it's just a great way to, again, connect with others in our community. The exhibit booths will have staff there that you can chat with, and they'll be there throughout the next 2 days. It's just like if you were at a real conference in person and walking down the hall, and you can chat with people there.